Close your eyes and dive right in. World unknown, a journey begins. Steer your thoughts, shift your fate. Hack yourself, don't wait, don't hesitate. Waves of sound, guide your dreams. Ancient wisdom, modern schemes. Business goals, life's grand design. Unlock the power of your own mind. Hypnotize your mind, find your way. Self-hypnosis every day. Coach yourself, rise up strong. This is your mantra, this is your song.
Greetings, beautiful human. My name is AJ, and you are watching AJ Inc. Triple M Coaching's Healing Trauma in Nature podcast event for Wednesday, June 24th, 2026. This event is actually the second lesson in the Human Programmer Academy, only found at hackyourself.net. If you are watching this on the YouTubes, you are missing out. Pause this video now and go to hackyourself.net. The video will be paused at the same spot and you will have access to the free workbook and content in the course, so don't miss out. As most of you know, my name is AJ. I am a human programmer. That means that I am an expert in self-hypnosis, and I help my clients easily and effortlessly rewire the unconscious programs of self-sabotage. Today's event is your second step in becoming the human programmer and living the life of your dreams. So let's get started now. Human Programmer Academy Lesson 2, Meet the Observer, the part of you that notices. Have you ever looked up at the sky during a storm? Dark clouds, lightning, rain, wind, thunder. The storm can feel enormous, powerful, overwhelming, and yet the sky never becomes the storm. The sky contains the storm. The sky witnesses the storm. The sky allows the storm. And when the storm passes, the sky remains unchanged. Many people spend their entire lives believing they are the storm. They say things like, I am anxious, I am angry, I am depressed, or I am broken. But what if that's not true? What if anxiety is just weather? What if sadness is just clouds? What if fear is simply fog? And what if there's a deeper part of you, one that has been quietly watching the entire time? Today, we meet that part, the observer. Why awareness changes everything. Most people try to change thoughts, fight emotions, control reactions, suppress feelings. Human programmers learn something different. Before we change anything, we simply notice it. Because you cannot debug a program that you cannot see. Imagine a programmer staring at a computer. The screen freezes. The system crashes. The output is wrong. The programmer doesn't pound on the screen. Instead, they begin to look deeply at the code, the software that is controlling what is visible to the programmer on the screen. Awareness is simply the ability to look at the code inside. The voice in your head. Let's do an experiment. Notice the next thought you have. Just watch for a bit with me. Did you create it? Or did it just appear? And if you can observe a thought, what is doing the observing? This question has fascinated philosophers for thousands of years because the moment you notice a thought, you are no longer completely identified with it. And that tiny gap changes everything. That little space between the feeling and our response to it is this present moment. And this moment, now. This moment, right now. This is where all your power lies to change the future. Let's explore something together. Not intellectually, not philosophically, experientially. Because the human programmer is not interested in collecting ideas. The human programmer is interested in discovering what is true through direct experience. So for the next few moments, simply notice. Notice the sounds around you. Maybe you hear my voice. Maybe you hear the wind. Maybe some birds outside. Traffic. The hum of a machine somewhere nearby. Now notice. There is something aware of those sounds. You do not need to make it happen. Awareness is already happening. Awareness is already aware. Now notice your body. Notice your feet. Notice your hands. Notice the weight of your body. Notice the temperature of the air against your skin. Notice your breathing. Something is aware of all those sensations. Now notice your thoughts. Whatever thought appears next, don't choose one. Just wait. And notice what arrives. Did you create that thought? Or did it simply appear? And if you can notice the thought, What is noticing it? This is one of the oldest questions humanity has ever asked. And it is also one of the most important. Because the moment you notice a thought, you are no longer completely trapped inside it. The moment you notice fear, you are no longer completely consumed by it. The moment you notice anger, you are no longer completely consumed by it. Something deeper has stepped forward. The observer, the silent witness, the awareness behind the experience. Let's travel back in time together. Before your job, before your relationships, before your responsibilities, before survival became your full-time occupation. Imagine yourself as a small child, maybe 5, maybe 6, standing in a backyard somewhere, looking up at the clouds, watching ants crawl through the grass, watching leaves dance in the wind. Long before you knew what anxiety was, long before you knew what success meant, long before you learned all the rules, there was already something watching. That observer was already there, before your beliefs, before your fears, before your labels, before your identity. The observer arrived first. Think about that for a moment. Your programming was learned. Your fears were learned. Your limitations were learned. Your stories were learned. But the observer was already present, watching, patiently, quietly, waiting for the day you remembered its existence. And perhaps that day is today. The observer and the pain body. In this section, we are going to learn the differences between observing and feeling an emotion versus becoming the emotion. So I want you to say each of the upcoming phrases in your head or out loud, just to see how the difference feels inside. Many people believe, I am angry. But the observer says, I notice anger is present. What difference does that shift make inside? And what does that difference do outside? Many people believe, I am afraid. The observer says, I notice fear is present in the system. Many people believe, I am triggered. The observer says, I notice activation. Notice the difference. One creates frozen identity. The other creates spacious awareness. Have you ever sat beside a river? Really sat with it long enough to watch? At first, it looks like one thing, one river, one object, one experience. But after a while, you begin to notice something. The water never stops moving. Every second, new water flows past. The river is constantly changing. And yet, we continue calling it the same river. Thoughts are like that. Emotions are like that. Experiences are exactly like that. They are constantly flowing, constantly changing, constantly moving. Yet most people try to grab onto them, fight them, control them, become them. The observer does something different. The observer becomes the riverbank. The riverbank doesn't chase the water. It doesn't resist the water. It doesn't judge the water. It simply allows the river to flow. Emotions to flow. Experiences to flow without becoming lost inside them. Imagine sitting in a movie theater with me. A scary movie is playing. You cry. You laugh. You feel fear. You feel excitement. And yet, part of you always knows I'm sitting in a theater. Life works the same way. The observer is the part of you that remembers I'm watching the movie. Not denying it, not escaping it, just remembering. Let's go deeper into the movie theater metaphor. Imagine sitting in the theater, the lights dim, the movie begins. Within minutes, you forgot you're sitting in a chair. You forgot about the projector. You forgot there was a screen. You became so emotionally involved. You laugh, you cry, you celebrate, you become afraid. Your heart races, your body reacts. Even though another part of you knows it's just a movie. Life is very similar. Many of us become so absorbed in our stories that we forget we are watching them. We become the character. We become the drama. We become the conflict. We become the fear. And then one day, something happens. Maybe through meditation, maybe through self-hypnosis, maybe through suffering, maybe through nature. The lights come on. And suddenly we remember, oh, I've been watching a movie. The observer is the moment the lights come on. The observer is the moment you remember who is watching. This is a good point. We can pause for a quick advertisement. We're watching AJ Inc. Triple M Coaching's Healing Trauma in Nature podcast event for Wednesday, June 24th, 2026. This event is actually the second lesson in the Human Programmer Academy, only found at hackyourself.net. If you are watching this on YouTube, you are missing out. Pause this video now. Go to hackyourself.net and the video will be paused like magic at the same spot, and you will have access to the free workbook and content in the course, so don't miss out. In this next section, we are going to get into some everyday examples. Only this time we're going to unpack the programs that play in the moment as the awareness. Our first example is parenting. Let's go back to our example from the last lesson, but this time we'll look at that program of what's going to happen. A child spills something at the dinner table. The automatic program reacts. What does that program look like? It's not the thought that triggers us. It's always the thought about the thought. It's about the cleaning up of the mess, or what our child messing up means about our parenting. It's always what the thought brings next. So instead of becoming these emotions, instead of telling the story that my child always makes a mess, the observer notices, and a brand new story begins to emerge. We are both learning. I'm learning to be patient, and my child is getting better at staying unmessy every day. Relationships. Your partner says something painful. The program begins reacting, but the observer notices the old story, and immediately you realize your partner is not your abusive parent. Business. A client says no. The lack program begins to react, but the observer notices, and you begin to notice other opportunities. Addiction recovery. A craving appears. The old program begins, but the observer notices. It begins to see the good that the addiction had given them in the past. And over time, the system integrates better habits that slowly take the place of old habits that no longer serve us. The observer creates space. Space creates choice. Choice creates freedom. What's fascinating is that nearly every wisdom tradition discovered this same experience. Buddhists call it awareness. Psychologists call it metacognition. Neuroscientists call it self-awareness. Meditators call it witnessing. Some spiritual traditions call it spirit. Others call it consciousness. Human programmers call it the observer. Different words, different maps, different languages, yet they all point towards the same experience. The realization that thoughts are not the thinker. Emotions are not the experiencer. Programs are not the programmer. There is something deeper, something quieter, something that has been watching your entire life. The goal is not to eliminate thoughts. The goal is not to eliminate emotions. The goal is not to become perfectly calm. The goal is not to become some enlightened robot. The goal is simply to remember what you truly are. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your conditioning. You are not your trauma. You are not your programming. You are the awareness that has witnessed all of it. The awareness that survived all of it. The awareness that learned from all of it. The awareness that can now consciously choose something new. Because the moment awareness enters a system, possibility enters with it. And when possibility enters the system, freedom becomes available. Not freedom from life, freedom within life, freedom to feel, freedom to choose, freedom to respond, freedom to become. And once you discover the observer, something extraordinary happens. You begin noticing it everywhere. In your thoughts, in your relationships, in your parenting, in your business, in your healing, in your moments of peace, and even in your moments of pain. Because now you know something you did not know before. The storm is not who you are. The clouds are not who you are. The rain is not who you are. The fear is not who you are. The sadness is not who you are. The anger is not who you are. They are simply weather passing through awareness. And awareness remains. Like the open sky, infinite, patient, present, waiting for you to remember. Something interesting happens when you meet the observer. You discover a gap, a space, a pause. And inside that pause lives choice. Because once you can observe a program, you no longer have to obey it. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this lesson in the Human Programmer Academy, Meet the Observer. Hopefully this has given you some clear insight into what the observer is and what it feels like to become the emotion as opposed to observing it and noticing it. If you're still watching this on YouTube, like I said, you're missing out. There's a whole bunch of extra information to go along with this. And then on the next page on hackyourself.net is the self-hypnosis installation session. Very powerful session. So head over to hackyourself.net. I will be approving new memberships as fast as possible, and I hope to see you over there. Like I said last time, I really appreciate each one of you taking time to take care of your mental health, healing your body from trauma from the past, getting rid of old patterns. This is definitely the best way that we can change the world, is by taking care of ourselves and healing ourselves. So I'm so grateful for each one of you. I look forward to getting to know you in the group, and I'm really, really proud of you. So thank you so much.
Coach yourself, rise up strong. This is your mantra, this is your song. Hypnotize your mind, find your way. Self-hypnosis every day. Coach yourself, rise up strong. This is your mantra, this is your song.